The person I'm talking to you about today is classified as one of the most horrific serial killers in the entire history of the United States. His crimes were not only numerous, but they also left the entire nation terrified. From beneath his house's crawl space, authorities recovered more than 33 bodies in a very short time, and at least 5 of them remain unidentified to this day. What makes it worse is that he was a very successful and well-known businessman, doing an unimaginable amount of charitable work. Just imagine how he was taking all these lives. In the mid-70s, any young American guy who bought a car felt immensely proud of himself and viewed it as an incredible achievement. That was the case for a 17-year-old teenager named John Butkovich. He owned a '68 Dodge and was well known for driving it around the North Park neighborhood in Chicago. Of course, keeping up with a car like that and its maintenance wasn't easy. That's why he worked at a painting and construction contracting company called BDM. Many young guys his age worked with him at the same company. It was a good, well-paying job, and the boss was a respected man named John Wayne Gacy. Days went by, and young John didn't get his paycheck from the company. He called his boss, who told him, "Be patient with me." The following month, he still didn't get paid. Frustrated, he confronted his boss, John, telling him he urgently needed his money, but John still refused to pay him. One day, John decided to take 2 of his friends and go directly to his boss's house. A heated argument broke out at the front door, and the young man threatened that if he didn't get every single penny, he would report him to the tax authorities. John Gacy got furious, but told him, "You'll get every dollar owed to you. Don't worry, just be patient." The conversation ended, and the young man left with his friends. However, right after leaving that house, he vanished completely without a trace. Strangely enough, when they found his car, it was unlocked with the key still in the ignition and his wallet full of cash inside. When his father saw the car like this, he was baffled his son cherished that car and was extremely careful with it. So where could he have gone? He immediately reported it to the police. When the police investigated, they learned from his father that the last place the young man visited was his boss, John's house. The police immediately questioned John, who told them that the boy had indeed come to his house with 2 friends, but left shortly after, adding that there were witnesses. The 2 friends were questioned and confirmed the employer's story. Thus, the police closed the report as a runaway case, assuming the boy had fled, even though his phone rang over 100 times without an answer. Time passed, and specifically in July 1976, another 17-year-old teenager named Michael Bonin disappeared. He worked as a carpenter and was very skilled at his job. Suddenly, he was gone, and the last place he was seen was a train station. Since police found no clues indicating foul play, they classified his disappearance as a runaway case as well. Around the same time, 3 other young men vanished all at once from the same area. Darrell Sampson, Randall Wayne Reffitt, and Samuel Stapleton. They all bore a striking resemblance to one another. Meanwhile, there was a 16-year-old teenager named William Carroll. His life was full of trouble and mistakes, and he was involved in suspicious relationships with older men. Even he vanished after last being seen on the 13th of July, 1976. Despite his troubled lifestyle, those who knew him knew it was unlikely for him to simply run away permanently. After him, 6 more young men vanished in the exact same manner their belongings remained behind, but they disappeared without a trace. It got to the point where police suspected these boys were running away from their families, but why? What was terrifying was that among these 6 young men were 2 inseparable best friends, Kenneth Parker and Michael Marino. The disappearances began to increase noticeably. During that same period, a new 17-year-old young man named Gregory Godzik went to work for John Wayne Gacy. He was thrilled with his job. describing Gacy as a respectable man he really liked. He was even helping him dig for pipes under his house, not just working at the contracting company. Yet, on the 12th of December, 1976, after coming back from a pleasant date with his girlfriend, he vanished too. Once again, the first person questioned was his employer, John, who claimed that the boy wanted to run away in the first place. He mentioned that the teenager left him an audio message before running off, but when police asked to hear or view the message, Gacy claimed he had deleted it. Disappearances continued to rise until the first week of January, 1978. On that day, police knocked on John Gacy's door, accusing him of sexual assault. A young man reported that Gacy had abducted him from a bus station, brought him to his house, assaulted him, and tried to drown him in the bathtub. The young man barely survived, escaped, and immediately contacted the police. Naturally, John defended himself, saying, "Guys, on the contrary, he came to my house voluntarily, and whatever happened between us was consensual with his full agreement." Gacy was extremely convincing he was a successful businessman, a major contractor, and well known for his charity work. He frequently performed for kids for free, dressing up as a clown to entertain and make children laugh. He persuaded the police, who believed his story and closed the case since the young man was uninjured. In the months that followed, disappearances kept climbing, including 19-year-old John Allen Syke and 18-year-old Robert Edward Gilroy, who was the son of a Chicago police officer. Robert's disappearance caused an uproar unlike any before, as his father knew for a fact that his son would never run away. Yet, the young man was nowhere to be found. Shortly after, John Gacy was accused once again of sexual assault, this time by a 26-year-old man named Jeffrey Rignall. When Jeffrey arrived at his girlfriend's house covered in bruises, she asked him what happened. He told her, "I don't remember clearly, but I recall being kidnapped, tortured, and sexually assaulted." A month later, Jeffrey went driving around the city with his friends, attempting to trace back any route he could recall from his abduction. Sure enough, he spotted a car that matched the one used in his kidnapping. They followed it until it pulled up right in front of John Wayne Gacy's house. At that moment, Jeffrey remembered everything. He recalled getting into that car, where the driver knocked him unconscious using chloroform. When he woke up, he found himself tied to a concrete pillar inside a house, where he was subjected to sadistic torture and assault before being dumped unconscious at Lincoln Park. This time, Gacy couldn't wriggle his way out, and the assault charge stuck. However, police only treated it as a sexual assault case, still suspecting nothing about murders. While awaiting trial, Gacy remained free on bail. He was still viewed as a prominent, respected figure who couldn't possibly be a monster. After navigating through that legal trouble, instead of keeping a low profile and stopping his atrocities, the disappearances escalated even further. 20-year-old Timothy David O'Rourke vanished after mentioning he found work with a Chicago contractor. Later, 19-year-old Frank William Landingen vanished after being seen walking on Foster Avenue, and once again, the last person seen with him was John Wayne Gacy. Most of the young men who went missing came from middle-class or lower-income backgrounds, the type of youth police assumed might easily run away or move between towns looking for better job opportunities. That's why, up until that point, law enforcement treated them as runaways, since no bodies had been found and no clear murder cases could be established. John Wayne Gacy was born in Chicago in 1942. From the outside, his family appeared quite normal: a father, a mother, and 3 children. On the inside, however, it was a harsh household. His father was an alcoholic who physically abused him over the smallest things, constantly belittling him and claiming he wasn't a real man. He humiliated him in front of friends and strangers, constantly comparing him to other successful kids. Whenever John fell ill, his father accused him of faking it As a result, John grew up somewhat introverted, constantly striving in vain to earn his father's approval. On the flip side, John was exceptionally smart. Although he failed to earn his father's affection, he managed to win the trust and admiration of everyone else around him. In school, he was extremely persuasive and skilled at interacting with different personalities. He could easily put on whatever persona was needed to convince people he was near genius in that regard. That was his most dangerous trait, as he could swiftly gain people's trust and persuade them of anything, even if it was far from the truth. Over time, eager to build a life for himself, he started working odd jobs. Eventually, he entered the restaurant business, working at several places and succeeding everywhere he went. He ended up managing KFC franchises, where his charm and persuasive skills earned him a reputation as a rising star, leading to rapid promotions. In his early 20s, he got married and moved to Iowa. His life began to look picture perfect. He was a successful restaurant manager with money, connections, a nice car, and a large home. But beneath that polished image lay dark urges. His sexual desires took a disturbing turn towards young men. He had underlying psychological issues that resurfaced dangerously, culminating in his arrest for sexually assaulting a teenage boy. That should have been the end of his social standing. Indeed, he was arrested and imprisoned, but upon his release, he moved back to Chicago to start fresh. He got into construction and established his own business, BDM Contractors. This marked a dangerous turning point. John became a highly successful businessman with wealth, a thriving company, widespread connections, numerous employees, and ties to prominent political figures. He participated in local events and, strangely enough, performed at charitable functions. He created a clown persona named Pogo the Clown, painting a big smile on his face to entertain children, perform acts, and pose for photos, appearing as the epitome of a respectable citizen. Anyone who met him or took pictures with him praised him as a kind, charismatic, and polite man. That is the chilling part of his story. Imagine that all this success and charity work was merely a facade, while under his own roof he was abducting young men, assaulting them, taking their lives, and burying them for years without anyone suspecting a thing. This continued until the 11th of December, 1978. A 17-year-old girl named Kim Byers was working at Nissen Pharmacy alongside her 15-year-old friend Robert Peast, whom she had a crush on. On that day, she borrowed his jacket. Robert had worked at the pharmacy for about a year, but was seeking a better-paying job to save up for a Jeep he dreamed of owning. That day happened to be his mother's 46th birthday, and she had shown him her birthday cake earlier. He agreed to be home by 9 p.m., mentioning to his mother that a contractor wanted to talk to him about a potential job offer, promising he wouldn't be late. Sadly, Robert never came back. His mother went looking for him at his workplace to no avail. Convinced her son was kidnapped, she alerted the police, telling them about a contractor named John Gacy who was supposed to meet him, insisting a crime had taken place. This time, the investigation into John was conducted with unprecedented seriousness. Upon reviewing his background, investigators uncovered numerous overlooked red flags, sexual assault charges, missing person reports tied to him, and statements from surviving victims. Gacy had always brushed them off, claiming these young men were just trying to extort money from him after consensual encounters. Never before had all these clues been connected until now. Under intense interrogation over several days, his story began to unravel. One day, while investigators were at his home, one officer caught a whiff of a foul odor, the smell of decomposition. When asked, Gacy claimed it was just a sewage backup. Unconvinced, the detective obtained a search warrant to thoroughly search the property. Upon executing the search warrant, officers inspected the crawl space under the house, a muddy dirt floor full of shallow trenches. Digging into the first spot, they unearthed a body, then a second, a third, a fourth, reaching 10, then 20, until a staggering 29 bodies were recovered from beneath his house in a short period. Realizing the game was up, Gacy attempted to flee, but failed. He then confessed to everything, detailing how he lured and murdered his victims. He explained that he tailored his approach to each victim's vulnerability, offering money to those in need, job opportunities to job seekers, or emotional support to those struggling mentally, before assaulting them and taking their lives. As for his methods, he leveraged his clown persona to trick young men into putting on handcuffs or head coverings under the guise of demonstrating a magic trick. Once trapped, their fate was sealed. After assaulting them, he would strangle or brutally murder them, burying their bodies under his house alongside the others. Eventually, when the crawl space ran out of room, he began dumping remaining bodies into a nearby river, ensuring they were weighted down so they wouldn't float to the surface or leave any trace. Due to the sheer number of remains recovered, several victims remain unidentified to this day. Investigations confirmed he took at least 33 lives. Gacy maintained he was fully aware and conscious of all his crimes. In 1980, he was sentenced to death, callously remarking, "Killing me won't fix anything. On the contrary, I am just one among many." On the 10th of May, 1994, 14 years after his conviction, he was finally executed. And so ends the story of the Killer Clown, considered by the U.S. as one of history's most monstrous serial killers. As I mentioned, he wasn't driven by financial desperation or survival. He was a successful business owner and contractor who volunteered at charity events to bring joy to children. Yet behind that benevolent, successful businessman was a predator who targeted young men looking for work, money, or simply a kind word. And that's a wrap, my friends. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and tell us which topic or killer you'd like us to cover next time. That's all for now.